Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. This week we have a number of great questions that we're going to answer, including one about insulation. You know, if insulation gets packed down, it's not doing what it's designed to do. Insulation really needs air in it, and if it gets packed down, you really need to fluff it up. We'll tell you how to fluff up the insulation in your attic in just a minute.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Some people think, well, if I pack it in there tighter, it'll be better insulating. But no, you squeeze out all that air and you're reducing the energy efficiency. We're also going to talk to a homeowner who has some slippery steps, and she wants to know what she can do because she wants to prevent any slips and falls, of course.
Also, we've had a lot of calls over the years about granite and, you know, do you need to seal granite? How do you select granite? That can be very challenging to get out. And, you know, if you're looking at these little squares of granite, there's so many different kinds out there available now. The good news is the price of granite has really gone down because the manufacturing process has gotten better and better. So we talk with an expert, Tony Neylon, about some of the things that you need to consider when you're ready for that granite countertop.
And if you've got a wire brush that the front end of it, the bristles at the front end are all bent and deformed, you might think you have to toss it out, but I've got a simple solution how you can rescue that brush and extend its life.
Hey, I'm glad you're with us. Let's get started. Joe, you know, one of the things we talk about, and certainly during the summer, people look at those outdoor living areas. And, of course, we've answered hundreds of questions about decks and refinishing decks. And also we talk a lot about the Paver patios. People are really intrigued with the Paver Patio, and it's a lot simpler. You can go to todayshomeowner.com and see many, many videos of Paver patios that we've done over the years, especially working with our friends at Pavestone. And, boy, I'll tell you, I am about to tackle one. I'm going to be like a laborer, I think my daughter thinks. But my middle daughter, Melanie, bought her a house not long ago. And one of the first things she wanted to do, not improve the insulation. No, not do anything on landscaping. She's ready to go hardscaping and put in a Paver patio. So I have 425 square feet of patio coming up over the next couple of days. So
that's how you're spending the rest of this weekend?
Yeah. And
okay.
She's been real sweet. She's been real sweet to me. I can, you can imagine sending me, nice little notes and everything. And so, So anyway, it's going to be good. But when you talk about instant gratification and the things that you do around your home, and you go, man, look at that, what I did. That feels so good that I was able to do that. Certainly, Paver Patio will do that because you have just a blank slate. And by the end of the day, many times, of course, I'll have the whole family there and boyfriends and a couple others here and there. So I'll have a lot of help to put it together. So by the end of the day, we will be able to have this whole thing complete. And she's having a grilling out, barbecuing a little bit that evening. So, that's...
That evening?
Yeah.
Boy, she's really putting the pressure on you.
Yeah, no pressure here, Pop. No. Here.
Hurry up, Dad. The steaks are coming out.
I know. So, anyway.
Is it going over, right now it's just grass and has it been prepared, or is it going over an existing patio?
And I'll have to give it to her. She has really worked hard on removing all of the grass and locating the power lines that were directly underneath prior to taking a rototiller. She went and rented a rototiller. I don't know how she got it in her little car, and got over there and just ran it all around because the ground was so packed. It was very, very hard to shovel and dig around. So she took that rototiller, raked everything, and I said, well, what we're going to do, we're going to take some string and some line levels that hook over the string. She goes, yeah, I have 2 of those already hooked up out back. Oh, okay. So she sends me a picture of the ground already rototilled, already raked. She's got a grid of nylon strings all over the place, showing the grade, where it's going, everything. I'm going, well, what? She doesn't even need me other than the muscle to put all of those pavers in. But yeah, she's made it much easier to where the first step is really I'm bringing a plate compactor, put a plate compactor, get right on that, and we'll be laying pavers within the hour.
Great. So you're going to plate compact, you're going to tamp down the ground first.
Right. Uh-huh.
And then you put in some sort of crushed stone.
Well,
or
actually
gravel,
here,
whatever.
she's trying a different system I have never heard of or never tried. She's done her research like so many millennials, really finding out all about it. And you actually put down 1 inch of sand.
Right.
And, after you level the compacted area, which, if you're doing this yourself, the main thing is to get all of that vegetation out of there. Then you want to get the ground, in maybe not level, but you want it to be sloped in the direction you want it to slope. And that is
away from the house.
That is not towards the house. That's away from the house. Then 1 inch of sand, and she's using these rubber mats of some kind that interlock. So, again, I've never used these before, so that'll be interesting.
And the pavers sit on the rubber mat?
Directly on the rubber mat. So, sounds good for the knees at least. And so, even though another bit of advice, if you're doing any kind of project, don't be the macho person and run around, kneel around laying a hardwood floor, or paver patio, anything without knee pads. Knee pads is a great invention, and certainly well worth it after you spend your day there. Your knees will be talking to you if you don't have the knee pads on.
And definitely buy the kind with a hard plastic shell on the outside.
Right, yeah.
There are a lot of ones that are just rubber, which are fine, as long as you don't kneel on anything that's really hard or sharp. And the other thing I've found with the hard plastic ones, especially indoors, you can kind of slide around on them. Where the rubber tends to grip and pull them right off of your knees.
Right now we're talking to Jason.
How you doing, Jason?
Hi, Danny. Hi, Joe.
Well, we're glad to have
Doing
you.
Good, guys.
Glad to have you here. I understand you're trying to get things a little more energy efficient around your house. Tell us about it.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to looking at adding insulation to my attic. I've got that blown cellulose insulation, and due to some can lights up there, I've had to do some electrical work up there, and I walked on it and kind of smushed it down. And I was wondering, what's the best way to re-add that? Should I get the insulation machine? I've only got like a maybe 25 by 40 foot section that's really that I've laid on and smushed it down and made a big mess of it.
It might be worth just getting a price from one of the insulation companies. That's almost something you could get a price over the phone if you tell them what kind of access they have and the size of it and how much you want, and just let them give you a price on it, and then go and calculate that same amount to buy the cellulose in the packs at the home center. And most of the time, they used to. I think they still do, Joe. Don't they still will provide you that machine at no cost if you buy a certain amount of insulation? Isn't that how that works?
Yeah, I think that depends on the store itself. But you can certainly rent the machines. But for an area that's a pretty good sized area, Jason, but I don't know if I'd rent the machine to do that. So you want to fluff up the area, the existing insulation that you've smushed down, as you say, and then you want to add new insulation on top. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've walked on it. It's a truss roof. It's a single-story ranch with a trussed attic, and it's kind of hard to get to. And I was like, I really made a mess of that. I need to fix it.
Yeah, well, I think you're smart to fluff up any that's been compacted, because insulation works when there's air in it, and if you smash it down, regardless of whether it's cellulose or any other type, you lose some of the insulating value. So what I would suggest, often you hear people say you go up there with a garden rake, and you can rake it up, and that does work, but it requires two hands, and it's a pretty long handle, and sometimes I've found that pretty awkward. So what I've done, and if you want to try this, is get a 3-tine cultivator. You know what that is? A garden cultivator, a little hand tool with the 3 kind of tines sticking down that you rake up soil with.
Not a gas powered one.
Yeah, not a rototiller. Although a rototiller will work.
Yeah, a rototiller, but it's pretty tough on those electric wires when you get one of those tangled up in there.
Yeah, but you save so much time. Yeah, don't use a rototiller.
I would have so much fun explaining that to my wife.
Yeah,
that would be awesome,
wow,
guys.
that would be
good. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so you use a garden cultivator and just tape it to the end of a stick, like a 1x2 that's only about 4 feet long. First of all, you can do it one hand. You don't need 2 hands. And you can just kind of fluff it up. And then you can come in and either have someone blow it in yourself, or for that size area, I would probably just buy the bags of it, bring it up there and bust it up and spread it by hand. And then again, use the cultivator to move it around. Okay. And again, just make sure, like with any insulation, don't pack it too tightly along the eaves there, because you'll block the flow of air. Assuming you have soffit vents, block the flow of air up to your ridge vent.
Yeah. And just kind of fluff it up like you would anything else. Just kind of make it thick, I guess.
Yeah, make it pretty.
That's right.
Man, guys, I appreciate it. I love you guys' show. You guys are awesome. Keep up the good work.
Hey, I appreciate that, Jason.
Thanks, buddy.
And hope you have a great weekend.
You too, guys.
Okay,
Take care.
Thank you. All righty.
Bye-bye.
Boy, that's
I think Jason should call every week.
That's what that just made me happy. And that's what that's exactly the today's homeowner community that we have all across the country. People that are enthusiastic about the house, and and they pretty much know which direction to go with different projects. But for us to be able to reinforce what they already know, or give them a few ideas, just like you did there, Joe, with the motorized garden tiller, and it really is a lot of fun, and then empowers homeowners to get out there and do it themselves. So we certainly appreciate that call, and encourage you to be a part of our community by participating in our Today's Homeowner Hotline. You can send us emails, certainly on social media. Check out the Today's Homeowner Facebook page. A lot of great stuff going on there. Also Instagram, Pinterest. If you really want to get inspired and see some really cool things, check out Today's Homeowner Pinterest board. And of course, if you'd like to send me an a tweet directly on Twitter at Danny Lippard. Hey, it's time for our best new product of the week. It's brought to you by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Now that the kiddos are back in the classroom, DIY parents can start checking off the list of projects they want to get done around the house. One assignment no one wants is heading to the store because you don't have the right size bit for a job. Well, Ryobi has solved that problem with their impact-rated driving kit. It comes in a heavy-duty storage case and includes 70 bits that are built to withstand the toughest use. The 2-inch bits are engineered with a torsion zone that absorbs the high torque that comes with the use of an impact driver. You'll also find a variety of the most commonly used 1-inch and 2-inch bits, along with specialty socket adapters, nut drivers, and a magnetic screw guide, all in one convenient case. With this kit, you'll have everything you need to get the job done before the school bus pulls up into the neighborhood. For more information on Ryobi's impact-rated driving kit, log on to HomeDepot.com. I always think of things like that and think of what a great gift that would be for someone that, because she never, so often. Matter of fact, I bought a kit of bits to this week because I got so tired of, having that one-star bit or that one-size Phillips head, that you use more often gone. And then I went in there and you see these kits that are, $30, and it's got so many of them in there. And certainly this one from Ryobi and many of the kits from Ryobi, it's a great way to go. And again, something that once you get that, you start seeing that your screwdrivers, regular manual screwdrivers, start being obsolete, aren't they?
Yeah, and they come in a kit that makes it easy to keep them all organized. That's the other thing. Instead of having them scattered all over, you have them all in one place, and then if you break a bit or you lose one or snap it off somewhere, you know that it's missing, and you can just buy a new one. You can buy these individually as well, so you can always keep that kit, fully stocked for every job.
Now, Joe, you have a son and a daughter, and as they were growing up before they moved out of the house, did you have any problem with Chris or Kate sneaking in and borrowing any of your tools? Did you ever have that problem?
No. It sounds like you have, but fortunately, I have not.
Yeah, I've had a few here and there that that my daughter's borrowed, and I thought you had plenty of those. Why do you want that one back? Because that one was in that place right there, and
and if you have 4 drills, they always take the one that you like the most and use the most often.
Exactly,
most often,
and the charger for the cordless thing, so that you're stuck there with the dead batteries. A lot of times we get comments on our Today's Homeowner Hotline and through emails and so forth about certain areas of your home. And one that we hear a lot about is questions about natural stone. Man, it is so popular these days with granite and marble and quartz and all kinds of things. But when you go out to the place to start looking at it, you can kind of it can kind of be a bit overwhelming, when it's like choosing paint or anything else when you realize there's so much out there. But we have Tony Neylon with us with Natural Stone, with Delta Stone, who's a natural stone and quartz expert, to kind of field a few of these questions. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, Danny, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We get a lot of things like, well, first of all, what I was mentioning there and trying to make a decision, you can see the little squares, the 3-inch by 3-inch squares. You can, try to decide on exactly what you want there, but there's nothing like walking around that yard. How do you kind of help people with those decisions?
Yeah, you're right, Danny. We used to be able to pick from those small squares, but with the information age on us, we've got lots of options, so it can get a little overwhelming. But you are correct. Seeing the slabs in their entirety is the best way to see these slabs. There's no way to capture all these wonderful creations with natural stones and in man-made quartz.
Yeah, it's really impressive though when you go out there. What are those standard size of those sheets? Is something like 5 by 10 or something?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. That's about the average size.
Yeah. Recently, I went out. I was choosing something, Joe, for my boathouse, actually. And I know putting granite in a boathouse is a little weird, but I just had to have it.
Just a little.
But I wanted something that was kind of cool. And Tony walked me right over to this really cool green and gold kind of a piece of stone. Right. And he said, look, this is down on the river. Look, you got a river running through this. And I'm looking. I go, yeah. He goes, I'll cut it out right here. I'll do this. And I go, okay. And man, it is just beautiful. Wait till you see it. And of course, we're going to be having a massive amount of fish on it that we'll be cleaning. So you'll get a good look at it though, and everything. But Tony,
that's okay by me.
That's another thing about it is, you're actually encourage homeowners to go out and look at the actual slab that their countertop or bathroom vanity will be cut out of, because one side of it's a little different than the other side a lot of times.
That is absolutely correct. And then there's patterns that don't have those, and depending on your space and what you're using it for, you may not need one with a large exotic pattern. But in your case, that's exactly right. We went with the one that went with the flow of the river, and we not only went with the leathered finish, which is going to give you that protection since it is outside and being used for fish. Because in a polished or honed finish, it would be a lot more maintenance for you.
Yeah, Joe, have you seen that, the leathered finish? How they it actually has just a bit of a texture on it. It's kind of a cool look.
Tony, I see it every time I go down into my kitchen, because about 2 months ago we had all new granite cut for our kitchen, and I was not familiar with leather. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention. I was familiar with the honed and the polish. In fact, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Is the leather finish, has it been around a while? Are people still going more toward the polished? The polished is nice because it's really a sleek kind of look, but I love the leather. It's just more of a matte finish, but it has a little bit of texture to it. But what are you seeing people choosing for the kitchen specifically?
Yeah, Joe, the leather has been around for a good while. It used to be called a brushed finished.
Okay.
We've moved it into kind of a leather because that's what it kind of appears like. The polished is a wonderful finish, but it all boils down to what material selections you're using, because some finishes are just not conducive with some applications. So the leathered finish really gives you an opportunity to avoid scratching. Right. You can clean it with more abrasive cleaners that you would hurt the finish in other polished and honed.
Do you excuse me, Danny, Tony, do you grind, or whatever the right term would be, do you grind the leather finish into stones, or do you get them from wherever you get stones?
Most fabricators are going to purchase them from a larger supplier that's already applying that. It's done with small silicone brushes that are embedded with little diamond particulates, and that's what creates the ups and downs in it.
I'd love to see that. That's kind of cool.
Yes, it's really cool. We recently, earlier this year in February, we got a CNC machine that actually does this leathering process, and so we're able to do it at will now, and it's really a neat process.
Boy, you should see it, Joe. I mean, this big giant table that must be 15 by 10, and they bring these big slabs in there, and then it's all computer generated. He feeds all of his data into this thing, and then it's like a mind of its own, moving all over and doing this. Not only the cutting, the edging, and that's one of the things I was going to mention, Tony, is over the years, of course, you've been in business for over 15 years, and you've seen a lot of changes from the guys out there grinding away with the tools. Now the technology free, and of course you make significant investments in your equipment, that really has brought the whole cost of natural stone down a good bit, just because it's not quite as labor intensive anymore.
That's absolutely correct. Obviously, investing in your tools and getting more advanced equipment is going to help you guys achieve a better product. And we like to say none of us are getting younger, and so if we want to continue doing the business, it's heavy. So you have to have good transportation. You have to have good production machines. And you're right. These CNC machines, they don't replace us humans. They actually just, if you're good at it, they make you better.
I'll tell you what, it does make a big difference in the accuracy and all of that, but still choosing that right granite is a challenge, because there's some beautiful, you go out there and you have in your mind, I know exactly what I want. You go out there and then you go, wait a minute. And wait a minute, and wait a minute. You see all kinds of things like that. So, hey, we're so glad Tony Neylon was with us from Delta Stone. And if you have any other questions about granite, marble, quartz, or anything else, feel free to jump on the Today's Homeowner Hotline, 800-946-4420. Send us an email if you wish by going to todayshomeowner.com/ask. Joe, you now was part of your kitchen renovation then. You replaced the countertops there just recently then, huh?
Yeah, and the doors and drawer fronts. And the other thing I was going to say, the great thing about going to a yard like Tony's is in my case, I replaced 3/4-inch drawers with 1 inch. So I needed the countertop to be cut a little wider. They said, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
I went to
great,
a manufacturer where they're already made,
Yeah.
all 24 inches or whatever the standard. Depth is.
It's hard to beat, and even though you have a seam here and there, you get the right guy installing it. They know where to position those seams to make them almost, impossible to see. And they're, when you think about it being a completely maintenance-free product, not exactly. You have a little bit of maintenance to do. Drop by todayshomeowner.com and we'll show you exactly the low maintenance that you need to take care of from time to time on your granite countertop. We like to check in on a few of the recorded calls. People that called the Today's Homeowner Hotline left a question that we felt like is a great question. Let's grab a few of those right now.
Every year, my school goes ahead and takes all the desks and the furniture out of a classroom where they get in, they strip the floors down, the floors are tile, and then they wax it, and then they move stuff in. That's a tremendous amount of work and damage to desks and everything else they move out. I've seen where they've got this coating that can go down, and you can put these sprinkles of different flakes on it, and then you come over with a polyurethane type of coating. Is this a good do you think this would work good in a classroom environment? If we could go for 5 to 10 years without having to, do anything in those classrooms, that would save a lot of money and work effort.
Okay. Well, a great question, but I don't really think that would be a good approach. And, the tile that you're talking about most likely is a VCT tile, vinyl composite tile, that's used very, very commonly in schools because of its wearability. And I think they're being very proactive now to strip the floor, strip the tile, and replace the wax on it, and then apply it with a buffer and so forth. I think that's great that they do that every year. But boy, what I can't think of a floor that would get more abuse than the kids dragging their feet, moving their desk around. I imagine it looks pretty bad by the end of the year. But if you put the flakes that you're speaking of in the coating, which would be a clear epoxy coating, it is still going to undergo quite a bit of wear and tear over the course of a school year. And by the time, to try to remedy that, now you're faced with stripping this material off in order to get all of the scratches out of there. And that would be a monumental task to do anytime. So I think the way they're approaching it is the right way to do it, even though it seems very labor intensive. Other scenarios would be even worse. Now, in the old days with the hardwood floors that they would have in many, many of the schools, that was a fantastic durable floor, but they still, wouldn't have to sand that every year. Sometimes they would buff it and put another coat of urethane on it, but I think the way they're going about it, I would say, is probably the way to take care of it.
It has to do with a newly poured patio that's about 18 by 40. The concrete was poured for the patio. Unfortunately, the people who did the concrete made it too slick. It's very slippery. We're trying to come up with a solution to make it
much more safer so that people will not slip on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow, that's a big patio.
Yeah.
40 feet long. Well, it's a little too late now, but the contractor should have given the patio a broom finish before it cured, because that would have made it much safer for walking. At this point, your options are pretty limited. I guess you could prime and paint it and use a paint that has a non-slip abrasive in it. Though I don't like painting concrete outdoors because, it's the moisture passing through the concrete will blister that paint. You could rent a concrete grinder and rough up the whole surface, just enough, not so terribly that it's hard to walk on, but just enough to take any kind of sheen off it. And the other option is to cover the entire patio with concrete resurfacer. We talk about it here all the time. There's a product called Recap. It's just a thin layer of concrete. You pour it over it, and then it gives you the opportunity to finish it as you want to make it a little more slip resistant. Okay, let's try another question.
We have a basement that is musty smelling and has moist. There is no water standing anywhere. The basement is actually a short basement in that it's only 4 feet tall. There are cement walls, cement foundation. There is a dirt floor. We would like to improve the home relative to putting something down on a floor to hopefully get rid of that musty kind of moist smell. Just looking for some advice relative to what you would recommend, Danny. Thank you so much.
Okay, certainly. I'm glad you were able to give us a ring on that. And, musty smells like that. It's just a lack of ventilation and moisture being introduced into the space in some way. And if you have the dirt floor there, certainly moisture can migrate up through there, even though you won't see standing water and that type of thing. So what I would do is any of the concrete surface that you have there, clean it, and then apply a waterproofer on it. That will block out everything. One that we recommend a lot is one called Dry Lock from UGL. That is a good one. There's a lot of other good masonry sealers and waterproofers out there. That just locks in the smell and the moisture and everything and keeps that from contributing to the smell. Then any of the dirt areas that you have, use some 6 mil plastic available at any of the Home Depots, and you just cut it neatly over the soil and just put it down, lay it down flat. Sometimes I recommend getting a bag of gravel and just kind of sprinkle around the perimeter of it to keep it in place, keep the wind from possibly blowing it up. And that will also block out the moisture that may be contributing to that and contributing to that smell. So I think I would try that, and I think you'll see a significant difference right away. Let's squeeze one more in.
A question about backsplashes behind a kitchen range. I'm looking at the possibility of something different, and I'm wondering how your thoughts are about using a cork material, particularly a floor cork covering tiles placed on the vertical surface of the wall as a backsplash. The area is probably 30 by 30, so it's not a larger area. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, I think cork tiles would work. I mean, you have to make sure you polyurethane them because cork in general is very porous, and if you're going to put it behind a stove or a range, it's going to get spattered with, grease and, food, any kind of food that you're cooking there. So, and tile and cork tiles come in many different colors. So, I think it'd be a perfectly good way to form that backsplash.
Yeah, there you go. I like cork. And also, if you have a situation where acoustics and sound barrier you want to kind of improve a little bit, which is a desire for a lot of homeowners, and cork certainly will absorb a lot of that sound and make it a little more acoustic tuned in your house. Great way to go there. Right now, we're going to see if we can help Donna in New York with a slippery problem she's having. Donna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. My son recently put in a new patio and Trex stairing leading from the back door down to the patio. However, he's finding it to be very slippery. Mm-hmm. Is there a solution for that?
Okay, all right. Well, they do tend to be a little slippery, especially on the steps when you get a little water on them and that kind of thing. When I mention an anti-skid strip, it immediately might make you think that's not very attractive. It is the finish of the deck. Is it a wood look to it? Is it kind of a stained?
Yes, it has a wood look to it.
Okay. Well, that's good because you can get a number of different anti-skid strips, which would be anything from 3/4 of an inch wide to 1 inch, even, wider than that, but I don't think you would need that. But if you install these things properly, and you might go online and look at the variety of different ones, because you can get one that's very similar to the look of your deck finish, or your son's finish on the deck, and just real carefully clean it and put that right on the edge of the maybe about an inch back, so that you have that grip. And if you put it very uniform and put it down there right, and boy, they will stay on there really well. That will probably take care of it. But I wanted to ask Joe. Joe, have you ever tried any of that anti-skid spray that they have, that's a clear spray that you spray on that? I've seen it, but I've never tried it. What about you?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I have not tried that. I think Danny's right, Don. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what other option you might have. First, the fact that this is a new deck or new steps, it would be slipperier now than it might be in a few months after it goes through an entire year of change of season, because it comes out of the factory, it's got a waxy. If you've ever been out there on a new deck, composite deck in the sun, it smells like Crayola crayons, and that's the wax, right, coming off it, and that's what makes it a little slick. And some of it will wear off and get baked off by the sun and everything else. But whether that solves the problem enough that it's not a slip hazard, I'm not really sure. You can buy 3M does make these peel and stick abrasive strips, and unfortunately, you're going to see them. Surefoot, there's a company called Surefoot that makes one that actually wraps around. It's a little L shape, and it wraps around the front nosing, the front edge of the steps, provides a little more protection from slipping, but it's also more obvious. But other than that, I'm not really sure what else to tell you. You don't want to sand these. You don't want to. They do make clear peel and stick abrasive strips for steps, but I've only seen them. I think they're only for indoor use. I'm not sure that you can use them outdoors. If you Googled it, you might find one that is available for outdoor. I know they'd make them for indoor. But
okay.
Donna, other than that, I'm not sure what else that I could suggest.
Okay. He was just surprised because when he had it installed, nobody had mentioned it to him that it could be slippery.
Of course, yes. There's not much you can do about it now. You don't want to replace them.
No. Oh, no. Not at that expense.
No. I think you'll find that it's not as unattractive as you think. I think you can put that there. And plus, people understand what it's there for. And, even if it doesn't look the absolute best, it's a heck of a lot better than somebody having a slip and fall on those stairs.
Right. Well, I love your show, and I thank you, Danny and Joe, for trying to help.
Okay. Our pleasure, Donna. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
I hope we're being able to provide you the kind of information that you're looking for. And the number of people calling the Today's Homeowner Hotline continues to increase. And, don't get frustrated if we're not able to answer each and every question. We do our absolute best to really reach out to everybody that we possibly can. But we appreciate you listening. And a lot of people love listening right at the end of the show here, where we have a simple solution. What do you have, Joe?
Okay, Danny. If you've used a wire brush, and most people have wire brushes around the house, they're great for all sorts of uses. But one way you typically use it is that the bristles at the front of the brush, the front end of the brush, typically get worn and bent and twisted long before the bristles in the middle or toward the back of the brush are even used. So what happens is the brush is almost useless, but you don't have to toss it out. And here's a way to rescue it. Just take it, clamp it in a vise, and use a hacksaw to cut off like the first inch or two of wherever those deformed bristles are. And the reason you use a hacksaw as opposed to a wood saw, because usually the brush itself has got a wooden handle. Sometimes it's plastic, but it's usually wood. But the reason you use a hacksaw is as you're sawing through there, you'll probably end up hitting some of the metal bristles. So you want to make sure you don't ruin a good wood saw. But anyway, you cut it off, and you can take off the sharp edges with a belt sander or something like that, even just sanding block. And what happens, you'll end up shortening the brush a little bit, but you'll end up with brand new bristles, almost brand new bristles at the front, and you can extend the life of it probably by at least 2 times.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'm thinking of at least 2 brushes right now I have that I need to do that. And
there you go.
And I'll tell you another thing, that's an easy project and really makes life a lot easier. changing blades. You know, two saws that people never change blades on are hacksaws and coping saws.
Right.
And boy, those are some of the cheapest blades you can get right there. But you grab that hacksaw and you start hacking away at something, and you realize, why don't I have a new blade for this? And so, I mean, heck, it's not much money at all on that. And same way with the reciprocating sawzalls. It's great to put a brand new blade in those, and they've got these unbelievable blades now. If you're doing some demo, they have the aggressive blades, pruning saws, pruning blades. Those
bimetal blades. The teeth last forever.
Well,
the other tip I wanted to mention, Danny, when we're talking about wire brushes, is one of the uses. Certainly, one of the first ones I bought was using to clean off a barbecue grill. But what you discover, of course, is the bristles get kind of greasy, and you don't want to use it for anything else. So I painted it a color, made it really obvious, and I actually wrote with a marker BBQ on it, so no one would use it for anything else. And I use it only for the barbecue.
That's a good idea.
Then I have a separate, I think I have 2 other ones that I use for, removing paint or rust or whatever. But if you use one for the grill, don't use it for anything else, because it'll make a mess of whatever else you're
That's a good idea. And a lot of the grill brushes are starting to get a lot of pushback from that, because those little tiny fibers are starting to turn loose, and then they end up in your T-bone. So you really don't want that.
I hate when that happens.
I know it. So having the more aggressive brush is the way to go. Now it's time for our podcast question of the week here on the Today's Homeowner Podcast, and would certainly encourage you to send us one anytime at todayshomeowner.com/podcast. This is Joe from New York writes, I have very cheap ceramic tiling in my kitchen, a few of which have become loose and or cracked, and I would like to install laminate flooring over the existing ceramic tile and avoid having to rip up all of the tile. I'm not an expert on doing this and was wondering what I need to do to ensure the job is done right. Thanks in advance. That's a good question there. And, if you have, first of all, you think of putting tile down or putting any kind of flooring down on a good foundation. If you have loose or cracked tiles, they would need to be removed. You want to go ahead and get rid of any of those that are loose. Then you can use a floor patch compound to fill it in, basically to flush it out, and then you're able to install your laminate flooring over that. Joe, this would be a great situation where maybe some of the enhanced padding that goes between theirs, because you would certainly have that clickety-clack sound over ceramic like that, but also probably going to have some challenges with those transitions going in and out of the room with making sure that transitions well to the adjacent floor.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because tile is relatively thick, and most laminate flooring, especially if you buy good laminate flooring, which you should, is relatively thick, and you have the foam underlayment, foam rubber underlayment under it. So, yeah, he might be, when he gets into the other room, he may have to come up with a way for that. There are different transition moldings, but you want to make up an inch, you want to make up half inch or more. But if he's asking, can you do that? Yeah, you absolutely can. As Danny said, you want to patch it and take care of any loose tiles, just glue them down. If they're cracked, I wouldn't even be worried about if they're cracked, as long as they're not loose, because you're going over it with brand new flooring anyway.
Over the last few years, we've gotten a lot of calls and questions about, can I put this floor over this type of floor? Now, it might be a wood subfloor, might be concrete. You might have a ceramic tile there, and you're trying to put more ceramic tile. There's a lot of things to consider there, because if you're going to spend the time to do a project like that, you want to make sure that it does look good, looks like a pro, performed the work, and it's going to last a long time. I would encourage you to go to todayshomeowner.com and put that in our internal search engine there about, installation of floor over existing floor. We've got dozens and dozens of articles, many different comments, hundreds of comments from people that have tried different projects, and it'll show you exactly how you need to approach it to make sure that you're doing it right. So thanks so much for that podcast question, and you can ask us one anytime by going to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Also, every week we encourage you to write us a favorable review. We're continuing to get some great reviews, and that means we're a little more visible to people that are seeking out podcasts about home improvement, and our numbers are looking pretty impressive, and that's because of you. And we certainly appreciate you listening to our podcast. I'm Danny Lepford along with Joe Truini. We'll see you next week.